Which one? Oh,
all right, 6 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Canandaigua Town Board meeting for July 19th, 2021. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance by Deputy Town Supervisor Beverage.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Captain. I am the supervisor for the town of Canandaigua, and I go through the agenda and lead the meetings. If you have any questions while we're going through about procedure, I'll be happy to answer. Jean, now, Lisa, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Mary Davis.
Present.
Councilwoman Linda Borzak.
Present.
Councilman Terry Emily.
Present.
Supervisor Kathy Metcalf.
Present.
Councilman Jared Siska.
Present.
And Lisa, can you confirm that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. There are written communications which are attached to the agenda, which are available online. So if anyone would like to read those, there's a listing of them on the agenda. Next, I would like to announce the birthdays of the town of Canandaigua for the upcoming months from July 19th through August 15th. July 21st, Lindsay Ferry. July 21st, Gary Cokersberger. July 21st as well, Patricia Venezia. That's a big day. A big party. July 23rd, Kelly LaBoy. And August 12th, Andrew Polino. Happy birthday to everyone, and I hope it's a pleasant day for you all. We have our first privilege of the floor. For those of you who are not familiar with the process for the privilege of the floor, you can speak on any topic. We have 3 minutes, which I time. It's my responsibility to keep the time, so please don't take it personally if you get towards that 3-minute mark. And I give you a high sign that you're getting to that 3-minute mark. Okay, that's to be fair to everyone so that they can be heard. Would anyone like to be heard on the privilege of the floor? Seeing no hands at this time, we'll move along to priority business. You have a presentation you'd like to give us. For those of you that don't know, Doug is our town manager. He's not our town. Let's see our town manager. Oh boy.
I'm going to move over here so that the microphone picks me up. And then just if everybody that speaks tonight, if you could just come to the podium, please. That way the microphone over here picks you up. And I'm going to try to minimize a couple of things so that we can see all of the screen here. I apologize. So I get to tell you some good news. The town of Canandaigua and the city of Canandaigua partnered up in a joint project a few years ago for improvements to the Sucker Brook water quality improvement projects. And we had quite a few different analysis done of Sucker Brook. We even had a group of students that I want to recognize from Hobart and William Smith College back in 2015 that did improvements and did an analysis with Kevin Mulvaney and the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council on Sucker Brook. But for those of you that don't know, Sucker Brook is it really is a huge stream in the town of Canandaigua, and it's basically identified by the red line here on the map. It starts at the southern part of the town of Canandaigua, goes north through the town of Canandaigua, then turns around at the northernmost point just south of the airport, and then goes back through the city of Canandaigua. And it runs back down and empties into Canandaigua Lake. So it's a very interesting tributary stream that it flows north and then turns around and goes south. In I believe it was 2016, Kevin Mulvaney identified 8 areas in the town of Canandaigua for water quality improvement projects so that we could hopefully help mitigate any flooding as well as hold back sediment from Sucker Brook that otherwise was making its way back into Canandaigua Lake. And you can actually see right here on this photo of Canandaigua Lake, you can see where a lot of sediment had dumped back over the years into Canandaigua Lake. It's also, Sucker Brook was identified as one of the primary pollutants of Canandaigua Lake through several different analyses that were done. But the town and the city got together, the city of Canandaigua, and we do have a representative from the city of Canandaigua with us, I know both by Zoom and in person tonight. Thank you both council members for participating being with us, but the city of Canandaigua contributed $175,000 to these projects. The town of Canandaigua, $150,000, knowing that the town of Canandaigua itself would end up doing a lot of the work with our crews and our equipment. We were able to complete 2 of the 8 locations. 2 of the water quality improvement projects were done, including the one on County Road 30 that was completed over by the airport. And I want to show you, this is what Outhouse Park looked like on May 16th, 2014, almost completely underwater. May 16th, 2014, County Road 30, just an incredible amount of water next to County Road 30 here. July 23rd, 2017, this is again is Outhouse Park. There's also, this photo is in the city of Canandaigua from that same date, July 23rd, 2017. And that was one of the reasons why the city partnered with the town to do this project, is to keep, not only we have these areas of the town that were flooding and the city of Canandaigua that was flooding the basements, but like I said, also keeping the sediment and the pollutants out of Canandaigua Lake. This again was July 23rd, 2017. So almost 4 years ago to the date. This was yesterday. They worked. The water quality improvement projects work. We have another one on 5 and 20 that we did that you see right from 5 and 20 that was completely constructed. And this was yesterday. It was holding the water back. The water was in the water quality improvement projects. The sediment was in the water quality improvement projects. They were doing exactly what they were designed to do. So we completed 2 of the 8. There are 6 more that I know Kevin really would like to see us get going on those other projects to continue to help with the sediment and controlling basically storm water events. We do have about $220,000 still in our water quality improvement project fund to do these. I know that there are some issues with easements and those sorts of things, but we just want to take a moment to just acknowledge the hard work and to share the success story. It's an awesome story to tell that, hey, they did what they're supposed to do. And we didn't have any severe flooding, to the best of my knowledge, and talking with the fire chief and the city manager, either in the city of Canandaigua or the town of Canandaigua, and thanks to these water quality improvement projects that were done. So, and Kathy, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
So I would like to take this opportunity to thank personally Jim Fletcher and your crews for all that you have done for the town of Canandaigua and the water quality in the lake. This is on behalf of the town of Canandaigua. Thank you very much.
Thank you
For all that you've done, and please thank your crew. I said I'm working hard. So we all appreciate what you do all year long, but I don't know if everyone realizes how much you do with regard to not only in the town, but helping throughout the county. And I am frequently told to thank you on behalf of many other municipalities. The town of Canandaigua helps town of Gorham, town of Victor, city of Canandaigua,
South Bristol, Naples.
and these are all projects which eventually help the lake, a lot of them. So for those of you who don't know, I'm also on the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. All of the municipalities that border the lake, as well as those that use water from the lake, are on the council. Kevin Alvaney is in charge of that. Before I became town supervisor, I was not aware of all the work that he does on behalf of the lake and his projects. He's an unsung hero. His projects are amazing. There's another water project that was done on the east side of the lake that's on the grounds of FLCC. That's a tremendous undertaking that was completed last year. And that also held yesterday, correct?
Yeah.
It was amazing. I got to walk it a few months ago, and I should have given you the pictures of it. The amount of water that can go through there and is saved from going into the lake and runoff has been tremendous. So thank you. And thank you to Kevin, who I don't know if he's online, but we also have a certificate of appreciation for him, and I'll make sure, or Doug will make sure that he gets it. So thank you very much. Yep. Presentations, we have Chris Nadler, if you're ready for New York State cannabis law update or presentation. Thank you.
How do I get to the?
Sorry, give me one quick second. I just need to share the screen so everybody on Zoom can also see it.
I was telling the town board, this is the first PowerPoint presentation I've ever given, so be gentle. It's true.
No, be gentle.
Oh, no, that's, I didn't expect it from them, but maybe you kind folks will, how do I get to the,
You can just scroll.
oh, okay. The town board has asked me to speak tonight on the New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act that was passed in early 2021. And as we all know, it makes adult use marijuana legal in certain circumstances. It establishes a cannabis control board. Underneath the cannabis control board is the Office of Cannabis Management, which is the staff, the executive director, all the investigators, the legal counsel. The Cannabis Control Board is going to be appointed by the chair is appointed by the governor. 2 members are appointed by the speaker, and 2 members are appointed by the leader of the Senate. They're 3-year terms. The board is authorized to grant or deny applications for licenses to sell, distribute, grow cannabis. They're authorized to conduct investigations, authorized to conduct inspections at places where cannabis is being grown, and they're authorized to revoke or suspend licenses. They are authorized to issue licenses for cultivators. These are the farmers. These are the greenhouse operators that are growing it. For processors, the people who process the raw cannabis into consumable products, be it smoked, be it eaten. For distributors, these are the people who take the cannabis that's been processed and distribute it to retail dispensaries and on-site consumption facilities. Delivery is contemplated in the law. It didn't appear to me that it was like a Grubhub service. It more appeared that delivery is for medical usage. And then the last category is on-site consumption. There's license requirements. The Cannabis Consumption Board is authorized to create more rules, but the rules in this actual 200 some odd page legislation are pretty extensive for the licenses, even before the Cannabis Control Board gets into it. If you're going to apply for a license to sell or on-site or retail, you have to notify the local municipality. That's the town of Canandaigua, by notifying the town clerk at least 30 days prior to actually submitting the application. The town can take no action. The town can issue an opinion supporting the application or opposing the application. The application will need to include, at the very least, information about the applicant's identity, including race and ethnicity, ownership and investment information, evidence of good moral character, fingerprints to be submitted to the New York State Criminal Justice Services Division, get information about criminal history and other background type details, information about the premises to be licensed, and financial statements. As I was reading through this lengthy legislation, it dawned on me that this is almost exactly the same setup as the New York State Liquor Authority. At least from what I can garner, this is going to be very similar to the license application process, and the operational regulations. You know, it includes things like you can't serve to someone who's visibly intoxicated. You can't serve to someone who's under the age of 18, or under the age of 21. Those rules will be further elaborated as the Cannabis Control Board issues them, along with the amount of what the application fees will be. And we don't know exactly what those rules will be, if they're going to pare them back and make it less like a liquor license, or make them more intense and even more authority than the liquor license. License requirements during operations, and the only thing we're addressing here is retail stores and on-site consumption facilities. That's where you can go and take some cannabis edibles or smoke a vape containing cannabis. Separate license would be needed for each facility. I think they're trying to avoid essentially franchise chain type facilities.
No employee can be under the age of 18 years. No alcohol or tobacco can be also sold at these premises. Records must be maintained. Inspections from New York State for compliance with these rules. Cannot be within 500 feet of a school or 200 feet of a church. And must be located on the ground level with street access and cannot have access to the rest of the building. The records requirement, the alcohol and tobacco requirement, the inspection requirement, and this very specific ground level requirement with access to pedestrian and parking facilities without access except for employees to other portions of the building. Seems to me that they're trying to avoid drug dens. I think the goal here is not to make these seedy, unregulated establishments. At least that's what the legislation is trying to maintain. Subject to town inspections for compliance with building code and fire code. We'll get into that a little later in the presentation, but it's another one of the license requirements. Advertising, same kind of thing. No false or misleading ads or marketing are allowed. No ads directed at anyone younger than 21. So you're not going to see Joe Camel or Mickey Mouse advertising cannabis. No health related ads. They're going to make it clear that you can't advertise marijuana as a cure or medicine. No discounts or coupons below market value. No signs that are disallowed by the control board. No advertising within view of a playground, daycare, school, public transport, transit, or in publicly owned properties. I don't know what the last thing said there. No brand name advertising. They made very clear that distributors and manufacturers can't provide signs to retail facilities or on-site consumption facilities. When you go into a bar, you see a Yingling sign that comes from the distributor. You see an Absolute Vodka sign that comes from the distributor, so that they're getting promotion right there. That's going to be prohibited under these regulations. This is a portion on local opt-out. It seems that a lot of municipalities are taking the local opt-out plan, which is contemplated right and included right here in the legislation, that says, you don't have to read all that. I just put it there in case anybody wanted to reference it. That says if a town doesn't want to allow on-site consumption facilities or retail facilities, they have to enact a local law subject to permissive referendum before the end of this year. The town board may repeal that local law at any point forever, but you can't adopt that law after the end of this year. Next year, January 1st, you could adopt a law saying, we're going to allow it. But on January 1st, you can't say we're going to disallow it. So many municipalities are taking the opt-out to provide the flexibility to determine whether the new regulations promulgated by the control board are worth it, or if there's something that we want to keep out of the town indefinitely. It does not prohibit people from possessing cannabis in town. It does not prohibit the manufacture and the distribution and the medical marijuana uses. But it does get you outside of the licensed retail and on-site consumption facilities. You can opt out of either retail or on-site consumption facilities or both. And that has to be spelled out in the local law. The process, if this is what you decide to do, would be to set a public hearing on the local law to opt out. You've done that. Conduct a public hearing on the local law. That's going to happen in a few minutes. At your next meeting on August 16th, you would adopt the local law to opt out. That's part of the agenda tonight. Then there would be a 45-day permissive referendum period. If no petition is filed, the local law to opt out will take effect for however long the town board wants it to be in effect. At any point in the future, it can be repealed. If a petition with 10% of the total number of votes cast for governor in the last election, if that is filed with Gene Chrisman, then the town clerk will submit the proposition to the Board of Elections for placement on a ballot in the next 60 days, which really gets us right around the end of the year, depending on how fast all these steps are taken. There are some provisions in the local law, in the state legislation, that allow the town to have a little bit of control over consumption of cannabis in the town. They can submit comments on licensing applications. The town may adopt regulations governing the time, place, and manner of operation if those regulations aren't unreasonably impracticable. That is undefined. Unreasonably impracticable is undefined in this law, but it's not in general zoning. And what this is contemplating is zoning type restrictions, noise related restrictions. And I think if the town goes forward with specific regulations, we would have to be very careful. The legislation makes it pretty clear they don't want anywhere near zoning out of operation. The opt-out of the local law of the legislation that we're talking about tonight is really the only way to prevent on-site consumption facilities or retail facilities. The town may adopt regulations about consumption of cannabis on town-owned property. So in our parks, a town hall, in the town hall parking lot, you can say, look, nobody can smoke a joint in the town hall parking lot. That's fine. That's allowed in this legislation. But going down sidewalks in the town, there aren't such regulations, and the town doesn't have authority to make those rules. Taxes, we talked about the stick, now the carrot. The state legislation provides for a 13% tax on all cannabis sales. 9% goes automatically to the state. 4% of the tax will remain local. There's no sales tax. This 13% is the total sales tax. 25% of that 4% will go to the county, and 75% will go to the town. So 3% of the sales tax will remain with the town. The town manager and I were having a conversation earlier today with, we really don't know how much that would add up to be. It's unlikely that the town of Canandaigua is going to be flooded with marijuana dispensaries and marijuana consumption facilities. We really don't know in this region what the usage and the sales tax dollars really will turn out to be. But this gives you an idea. It would be about 3% of whatever sales tax would go to the town. And that's all I have prepared, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I did a fair amount of reading up on this law and am generally familiar, so I'd be happy to answer any specific questions any of you have. Yes, ma'am.
So you said no employee under 18, is that correct? It's not under 21, you can work there? If you're 18?
Correct. Similar to bars, you can serve alcohol at 18, you just can't consume it.
And you said it can be controlled by zoning or words to that effect, but my understanding is if you don't opt out, you must zone for it. You can't zone it out of existence.
That's exactly what I was trying to convey. You cannot zone it out of existence.
So you must have a place within the town that specifically specified as adult use. When would that have to be done by?
Well, I think that based on the language in this law that you have those places, and those are commercial zones. It's a store selling a product. It's a retail use. You could
do it as an adult use.
You could specifically say an adult use cannabis can be done in this area, but I think it is a commercial or retail use and would be eligible in those zoning districts. The law doesn't specifically address that, and your zoning regulations with relation to your commercial and retail districts would apply. And additional zoning can be imposed, a special use permit, for example, off the top of my head. But it would have to be reasonable and not unreasonably impracticable.
Do we, as a town, have any zoning around, where bars can be located? That you're aware of?
Not specific to bars. I mean, it has to be in a commercial or a retail zone.
But with this one, can be more specific.
Well, do we have a special use permit for bars? No.
Commercial.
Okay.
We do have, places that are designated as adult. And where is that located?
Generally in area close to uptown would be the most concentrated area where it could do that.
To be clear, though, the adult use cannabis is not equated with adult zones.
But you could,
Absolutely.
that's what and I would imagine that
Well,
that might be something that someone would look at. My understanding from my research is the time, place, manner can be restricted in any way. It doesn't have to be just commercial. You can put it in places where, for example, you have adult use. You don't have to, but that's.
yeah,
If that's an area that you've already determined might be appropriate for adult uses, it might be a location also where this might be. It's not, you don't have to just keep it to commercial. Retail.
I agree with that, that you don't have to keep it just to commercial, but I do, and we haven't looked at exactly how to zone for this, because we don't have that on the table at this point. Off the top of my head, I would think that you can't restrict it to industrial zones. I don't think you can. I think that would violate the unreasonably impracticable language. That being said, that's off the top of my head. I can research that further when and if the town gets to that point.
I think that brings up a good point, though. A lot of this, we don't know exactly where this is.
Exactly,
necessarily going.
exactly.
A lot of it hasn't been litigated
The,
and will be litigated.
or even regulated yet. The Cannabis Board has yet to promulgate a lot of their regulations. I should point out that the zoning option, the advertising option, the taxes option are only if the town ever withdraws the local law that's on tonight's agenda. If the town adopts that, you don't have to zone for anything. You're not going to get any sales taxes. You don't have to worry about where the advertisements are placed.
Have we given any consideration to splitting the local law into two? We see the two things as very different. There's people who have health reasons why marijuana helps them and other drugs are more toxic for them. And so I feel really sympathetic to people being able to obtain what they need for their health.
This does not apply to that. This does not apply to medicinal or pharmaceutical or CBD products. So if you need it for a health reason, you can get it now and you still be able to get it.
So
But
this
this is for
doesn't,
recreational.
this
use.
doesn't talk about dispensaries?
No, Kathy's correct. This is retail for recreation.
Oh, this is
Uh,
pure rec.
Yeah. Medical usages are separate, are in here.
You have to have a prescription from their doctor.
It's a certification and it's, it's regulated fairly, stronger than medical marijuana use has been in the past, I think. It actually would be pretty restrictive. But it is separate from the two things we're talking about.
And you can't limit that.
Right, what,
Right. That's it, separation. This is just for recreational.
You raise a good point, though. These are two separate things. Retail is the same as any store. You go pick up product and, you leave with it. You pay for it and you leave. The same as you go grocery shopping. On-site consumption may be different, and that I don't know what the Cannabis Control Board is gonna do in terms of specific regulations. When you're going to the retail store, are you gonna be allowed to sample? Because there's different flavors and there's different, if you go into any, what are they called? So, tobacco store now, they've got all these vapes and you can sample those and see which flavor you like the best. I don't know. The Cannabis Control Board hasn't put forth specific regulations about that yet. I don't
My
think,
understanding is they have to be separate.
I think you're right.
You can't consume on those premises. And the adult consumption sites are got to be a lounge type of atmosphere, you can sample there. So it would be 2 doors down from each other, I think. or
Yeah,
they may end
I
up-
bet there's gonna be,
they may
I
end
bet
up
there's
with
gonna be a
a
distance.
regular- they may end up with there may be other things that come from that as well, but that's my.
Yeah. Well, but the whole point of this is that nobody knows exactly what those rules are gonna be. We have what all the experts and municipal lawyers and, municipal commentators are pretty sure it will be, but Cannabis Control Board could do a lot of different things. It could do a lot of different things in terms of New York City versus upstate. There's a lot that could happen that we don't know about, which is why this is on tonight's agenda to say, do we wanna opt out while we still have the chance and see what's gonna happen? See if we're comfortable withdrawing all or part of the local law.
And I just want to make it clear for people, you mentioned when you covered it later, you said you can still possess. We can't legislate out possession of marijuana.
That is
nor-
correct.
Nor the use. really.
Correct.
So just.
I was-
Yeah.
I was sitting at a table on downtown Rochester the other day having lunch, and all four of us said, what is that smell? Some guy was walking down the street smoking a joint.
You can use regulations under the Clean Air Act similar to smoking.
Yes,
You can prohibit use in the same manner as with smoking. in the Clean Air Act.
yes.
So obviously that would cover gummies that have marijuana in them or something.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't be affected by the Clean Air Act.
It wouldn't be, and my guess is, I don't know about Ontario County, but my guess is the police forces in Ontario County will be more active in enforcement, but if I hang a sign that says no smoking, you gotta get someone to enforce that. Which means you gotta call a sheriff, they've gotta come find the guy with the lit cigarette, and then they're gonna issue a ticket. So it's not like you're going to jail for 10 years for smoking a cigarette or a joint. So I think there will be an enforcement problem with that, actually.
May even be just code.
Yeah,
I don't know that we shall do. Arrest for just like the cigarettes.
Yeah.
Using a cigarette.
to make you put it out and
I think the whole point of this at the state level is to decriminalize, so I don't really see
exactly.
criminal enforcement.
Any other questions?
Yes, you survived it. first time.
Computer didn't shut down at all.
All right, our next presentation is ARP funds. I'm Doug Finch. For those of you who don't know, ARP funds are the American Recovery Plan. Town of Canandaigua will hopefully be awarded $1.2 million in this funding process. And Doug is going to talk to us about that process and how those funds may or may not be used. Is that correct?
Sure, yes. And I did do an in-depth presentation with our finance committee this past Thursday. So I'm just going to touch on this and then I'm happy to answer any questions. As Kathy said, the town of Canandaigua is eligible. It's just under $1.2 million that we'll be getting. I see the scrolling thing that's transcribing the meeting is covering that, but it's $1.154 million is the actual number that we've been identified and qualified for. And that's to be broken down in $570,000. And again, unfortunately, the transcribe is blocking that, but 2021 and 2022 is when we would be getting those money. We'll get a $500,000 payment in July, approximately the end of July, supposedly, although the state now classifies that as summer 2021. And then we would get a payment in July approximately of 2022. There are some reporting requirements associated with this. Actually, we've got a initial report coming up here in another month of how we're going to be spending the money. There are deadlines for use of the money. It has to be used by the funds have to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and then used and spent by December 31st, 2026. So there's 4 categories on how you can use the money. And I'm going to go through these very quickly, but please ask any questions. Here's the 4 categories. So what I wanted to do is go through each of the 4 categories to see, okay, what works for the town of Canandaigua, what doesn't. So the first is a loss of revenue. And good news for us, in one sense, our revenue, and there is a very complex formula that we had to go through to determine the growth factor and the loss of revenue. Bottom line is the town of Canandaigua doesn't qualify for this category because we didn't lose the revenue that some of the other municipalities had. It's basically our growth factor was a negative growth factor for loss of revenue. That's a good thing. And then this funding formula allowed us up to a 4.1% growth factor. And the bottom line is our revenue was higher in 2020 than it was in 2019, with 2019 being the base year as compared to the growth formula factors for 2015, 16, 17, and 18. So number 3 is out. So that leaves us 3 other categories that we can look at on how to spend this $1.1 million. COVID public health emergency, providing premium pay to essential workers, and make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So then when you really start to break this down, I'm going to really kind of fly through this here a little bit, but relating to COVID-19 as a public health emergency, and there's all kinds of different dates and there's all kinds of different things. There's lots of strings associated with this money, is how I would say. All kinds of different things that you can calculate about whether or not it was really a negative impact. The bottom line is our contractual expenditures related to COVID-19 were about $57,000 in 2020. And then our personnel expenses for our premium pay for our overtime was about $24,000 relative to COVID. So the $24,000 is eligible to be recouped as part of that $1.1 million. I want to just show you, and then under some of these categories where you talk about like the negative impact to the health. For instance, when you really start to drill down into the details, the use of money to enhance outdoor space is allowable as a impact to mitigate the negative impact from the public health environment. So outdoor space is actually a qualifying category. Provide premium pay to essential workers. I already kind of mentioned there. The funds cannot be used to provide the base pay, only the overtime. So it's about $24,000 is what we had in 2020. And a lot of that was relative to the transfer station. The overwhelming majority of that was relative to the transfer station. Final category is make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And this is where you really get into tons of detail about what may or may not be included. What I highlighted in the red, and I know it's hard to see from over here, at least is for me, but I know I touched on this. The town board gets to make the final decision on whether or not it qualifies. Yay, good luck. There's all kinds of things on the list of things that you could potentially do with the money in terms of water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. There's all kinds of different categories, whether it's DWSRF or the clean water CWSRF. That really gets into like water quality improvement projects, stormwater planning. When you really look at these, I think it's 10, 11 categories, and you really drill into it, there's all kinds of detail about a whole nother layer of things that may or may not qualify. And I highlighted one here, for instance, stormwater management is something that would, stormwater management plan is something that would qualify under this money. So there's any number of different things that you could do with this money. Really, the point of the presentation here tonight is to get you to start thinking about, okay, we're going to get almost $1.2 million. We're going to get just over $500,000 this year. We're going to get $500,000 next year. It has strings to it, but we need to start figuring out, okay, what is it that we want to do with it? Where is it that we want to go with the money from here? So any number of different things associated with it, you know, stormwater management, Canandaigua Lake protection. I just included outdoor type space, uptown outdoor space, agriculture things, water infrastructure improvements. I know we've got a situation right now that we just were talking about even prior to this weekend storms on Seneca Point Road that needs some water relative to stormwater control. And I think you said the cost was about $277, I believe, $250-ish. So that's almost half of that first year's allotment if you want to do that. And that was a non-budgeted expense. So again, economic development, especially with Matt Horn coming up next, that is another option under this. So just want you to be aware. That's all. No action here tonight. Just want you to start thinking about it. Okay. Any questions?
I have a quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can use this to just say, we're going to reduce our taxes from now on, right?
No.
This doesn't qualify.
Correct.
as a revenue loss. We're going to get it in two, the call works well over two years. right?
Yes, yes.
I just want to, and also the 57,000 that was used for, or whatever that approximately was,
Mhm.
you couldn't use it to reduce that either. It has to be expenses after March of 2021.
That is correct, but we could recoup the 24,000.
Right. So
Yes.
you're using that as example going forward.
Yes.
If we were going to use it for that, that's how
Yes.
much we spent.
Now,
Or it's possible.
Correct. Now, I actually am working on a FEMA reimbursement for that $54,000, which it sounds pretty good, like we may get that, which is great, but we could not use that 54,000 out of that 1 point, almost 2 million.
And just so everyone knows, I mentioned this at finance, but the county is looking into using their money because they're also getting money for broadband investments for the whole county. So that would be one thing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I want to give that we got $1.1 million of no flooding talks.
I got to share good news.
Right now, are you ready for the
Yes, ma'am.
presentation on the candidate? Thank you very much.
There you go, Matt. Sorry, it's just moving there, Matt. Go ahead. You can.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me tonight. I was just remembering that probably a little over 2 years ago, I was in this very room and Doug was hosting a training session for planning and zoning board members and some town staff and board members. And Karen Dworzak and I presented together on the critical nature of collaborating with the city on economic development. We talked at that time about how an LDC might be a valuable tool in that endeavor. So I'm happy to be here a couple of years later to report to you on just how beneficial we think how beneficial a tool we think it's becoming. I'd recognize a couple of our board members here tonight. Supervisor Menakatz is appointed by the town, as is Doug in an ex officio capacity. The town's other appointee is Andy Griffith, who you all know. And all of these folks are very heavily engaged in the activities of the LDC, so the town's well represented. I'll recognize also our chair tonight, Jim Terwilliger, who's from the Canandaigua City Council. He chairs the LDC for us, and he's also incredibly engaged. You know, I can't tell you enough, and I'll give the 1 sentence or 2 sentence version of what I said 2 years ago. It's not a foregone conclusion that this intermunicipal cooperation happens, right? I grew up, if you will, in local government in Geneva. I say Geneva stole my 30s. I was there. I got hired when I was 30 and I left when I was 40. And in that 10 years, I had to do a lot of explaining to city council about why only a few of us local government nerds out there really recognize where that invisible line is that surrounds the town of Canandaigua or the city of Geneva. The market does not recognize it at all. The market pretends like it's not there. And so investors really look at what's the best opportunity for them to generate a return. So I think it's incredibly, it takes a great amount of foresight and to cooperate and to recognize the shared market power that you and the city have. And we believe in that, and we're thankful for it. We also recognize, you know, our economic development partner in the Chamber of Commerce and someone who speaks for business at that table. It's easy as a local government representative, you get pulled under in the tide of bureaucracy, right? That's what we do for a living a lot of the day. And the chamber is always there with a strong lens of you know, what's right for the business community. So I do want to say thank you. And I think on behalf of the entire LDC board, your investment, no doubt, along with the cities, is what got this started. Not just your investment of resources, but your commitment to allow Doug to range out. I was just reading some of Chris's handiwork on the enabling legislation and the bylaws. Your commitment to this effort has been tremendous, and we're thankful for it. I'll speak also about, I have to remind sometimes, I feel like, so for those of you who don't know, MRB Group was engaged by the LDC first to perform startup services. It is New York State, so there's no shortage of laws and rules and regulations about how local governments can entertain economic development. So we did an initial really short, MRB Group did an initial 90-day engagement to stand the LDC up. and to get it moving, checking all the regulatory boxes that are required, state reporting and mission and vision and 5-year plan and all of those things. And so we were initially hired to do that. And then following that engagement, we were hired and now have been renewed once under a contract to provide executive management and economic development services. And so I find myself working as an extension of Doug and John Goodwin's staff. I make myself available to them in that way. I'm in Doug's office asking him where he wants to see this organization go, similarly with John, and regularly in conference with both of them to make sure that your investment's well placed and that we're pointed in the right direction. I find myself often counseling boards and even city and town managers about the pace of economic development, right? Mark Venuti, who's the supervisor in the town of Geneva, he used to say the city of Geneva and the town of Geneva are cousins. We got the same last name, but we don't always agree with one another on everything. The city of Canandaigua and the town of Canandaigua are much more cooperative than that. But it did take some time. You had already invested a lot of time in some early strategic planning, and it will take some time for us to get our legs up under us to be a really high functioning economic development effort. I think we're there. I think we've invested that time, and we're starting to get some traction. So how this presentation culminated was the LDC had appointed a communications committee or a public relations committee. And that committee said, hey, how can we make sure we remind folks of the good work we're doing here, put ourselves on people's radar, and show that we're an economic development partner in the region. One of those tools is to report out to the city and town each quarter on our progress. And so we want to make sure that this board is directly aware. I know Doug and Kathy are always offering insights into our operations. But I want to make sure that I'm here and available to you in case there are questions. So for tonight, I'll give you the second quarter performance. It's kind of like opening a book to the middle. So if you want to go back a ways and ask me what happened in the first quarter and the first year, I'm happy to talk about that too. But in terms of big organizational things in the second quarter, the second quarter kind of represents our emergence from COVID. We got our start right as COVID really got going. We were chartered in November of 2019. By the time we got our boards appointed and our meetings under our feet, and we really got going, we had our engagement. That first regulatory box got checked March 1st of 2020, and we were right in the throes of COVID. So we began work immediately with the LDC board to kind of create a COVID response plan. What that really meant was that whole strategic plan that we had put together in that first engagement just got paused. We pressed pause on it while we dealt with the COVID response. So in the second quarter of this year, we were able to begin that strategic execution, the strategic doing in earnest. So we held a board retreat in late first quarter of this year and said, beginning in April, these are going to be our priorities. One, facilitate the redevelopment of Pinnacle North, try to get that project up and running again. Let's see what we can do there. It's a great piece of property, and it certainly has stalled out in recent years. We want to see if we can get that moving again. For those of you who know the label I'm building in downtown Canandaigua, the board identified that as a priority. There's a developer engaged. There are a lot of moving parts in that process, and we just happen to have folks on our team who specialize in these challenged properties, these challenged projects, and so we're supporting that effort. Facilitating redevelopment at Tom's Mobile. We do have a developer who the city has been able to recruit, who's showing great interest there, and as that deal comes closer to closure, the LDC stands ready to support that. In terms of how we'll support the town directly, they identified Route 332 as a strategic corridor and asked us to begin identifying strategic sites and promoting them to development activity, particularly in and around Augustus and in the uptown Canandaigua area. And then finally, support the development of a craft beverage trail specific to Canandaigua and promoting the fact that the city and town of Canandaigua have an incredibly high concentration of brewers. We've got our own distilleries now, wineries, and we want to promote the city and town as a destination for that. So that kicked us right out the door on the following the retreat, and it turned us to the fruits of our efforts from last year in terms of the first piece of marketing we wanted to do. So through our engagement with the LDC, we wanted to create a single portal for folks to engage with the local development corporation. Canandaigua means business.com, longest URL ever. We got to come up with a shorter version of that. But Canandaigua means business.com is the landing page where we host a whole series of information about effectively how to launch a business in Canandaigua, where to locate your business in the community, programs for growing your business, and then equally critical to economic development, it's something that Karen Parkhurst and I have been working together on, is living in Canandaigua. Who can, once you have a business presence here, making sure that your employees have affordable housing and a great quality of life. So we don't have to dig through all of this, but just as an example, landing your business in Canandaigua, you can follow these paths. I'm looking for a place. I found a place. If I'm looking for a place, then I want to look in the city, or I'm sorry, in the town of Canandaigua. And this takes you out to our partners at Greater Rochester Enterprise, who hold a database of available properties in the town of Canandaigua. So here's favor number one, aside from the generous investment of cash that you've already made. If you have friends, colleagues, partners in the community who you would like to encourage to locate here in Canandaigua, please direct them to canandaiguameansbusiness.com. If you have friends, colleagues, or others who own property in the town of Canandaigua and would like an additional marketing resource, this marketing resource is at no cost to those property owners. So if you could just direct them to either reach out to me or come to this website, we will get their information right onto this page. And myself and my colleagues at the LDC and at MRB Group will use that catalog when we do get referrals. And we have designated ourselves or identified ourselves as the go-to from Greater Rochester Enterprise, who are the site selection conduit for economic development projects in the Rochester region. So if you know someone who owns a big piece of property or a little building, please direct them our way. There's no space contingencies on this. Anybody who has a space that they want marketed for redevelopment can land there. The website, I encourage you to visit it, look all around it. I won't bore you tonight with it, but it is it's I think visually pleasing, as you can see, but also just jam-packed with information about how we can support you here in Canandaigua. Most recently, and something that we'll be asking you to act on in the next month or two, the board did approve a series of bylaws changes. I think the most critical one is the expansion of the LDC Board of Directors. We do have 5 voting members today. The proposal is to allow for up to a very significant expansion, I think, but not requiring that, but allowing the LDC board to identify additional people in the community who would be valuable to contribute to this. So be on the lookout for that. Update on the update on the Canandaigua Craft Beverage Trail. One of the things we don't want to do that government can do sometimes is duplicate effort. We did recognize the fact that Rock FLX is a well-funded, very active craft beverage trail featuring craft beverages from the total Rochester region. So Supervisor Mennicott chairs a subcommittee and on our board, who is charged with getting the Canandaigua Beverage Trail off the ground. And they very quickly identified this Rock FLX trail as a premier partner. So we're in conversations with Rock FLX about creating a Canandaigua leg to the Rock FLX trail with an enhanced layer of marketing that says, hey, if you're looking for a day trip where you want to experience a concentration of wine, beer, spirits, go to Canandaigua. Here's a marketing piece for that. Here's a website for it. And so we're going to see some collateral coming off of that in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned 332 as a strategic corridor for us. I've met with Doug. We've identified a series of strategic sites along 332. We're going to start engaging with those property owners to actively market those sites toward the town's goals identified in your strategic plan. So that's the bulk of the work we've been doing in the second quarter. Moving forward, we're going to continue these communication efforts, regular quarterly board updates, quarterly roundtables. The LDC board is going to identify some stakeholder groups, and we want to meet once a quarter with a set of stakeholders, whether it's major employers, tourism businesses, retailers, others. We want to meet once a quarter with a set of stakeholders, economic stakeholders in the community. I recently submitted a newsletter article to the town. We're going to do that each month so that the town residents can be up to date on what we're into. We have started talking to Doug about strategic use of the ARPA funds to support economic development. That is an item, as Doug just mentioned, that is identified explicitly as a potential use of ARPA. And we think we've got some good ideas about how to directly support businesses using that fund. This past week, the LDC approved an expansion of a contract with Bergman Associates to develop coordinated wayfinding in the town, uptown 332 corridor with the city on their lakefront project and throughout downtown, so that we would have a single unified wayfinding system that would take you from the shore of Canandaigua Lake all the way to uptown Canandaigua. So the board, the LDC board, did approve some funds to support that effort. We've just commenced our existing industry or economic gardening effort. The best way to generate economic opportunity or economic impact in a community is by expanding the businesses you already have here, looking for growth opportunities inside of those businesses. So we're working with the board to establish a visitation program where we will be out in the community. We're already meeting with the big picture folks, the big players that you might imagine, like Acoustis. We've had a good meeting with them and others, but this would be, again, targeted into specific sectors. We'll be focused again on the Rock FLX Wine Trail Partnership, development opportunities on 332. And then most recently, we started meeting with the Affordable Housing Task Force that this board seated to talk about how housing factors into economic development. We are not going to be able to attract the type of talent that will attract the type of companies that Canandaigua is interested in if we don't have quality workforce housing. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to support that effort in earnest. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm certain I've overstayed my welcome, but there's a lot going on.
And we just want to touch on the work being done with the Density Transportation Council, and the 5 and 20, 332.
Certainly.
How the LDC is working and supporting.
Certainly, yes. That was a big miss. The LDC supported the development of an application for an active transportation planning grant from the Genesee Transportation Council. The idea was the intersection, and this was identified in your earlier strategic planning efforts, but the intersection of Main Street and Route 332, Route 332 and routes 5 and 20. Anybody here who would casually stroll with a baby carriage or across those 6 lanes of traffic, just raise your hand. Nobody would, right? And so the idea was, if we're really going to connect downtown, uptown to the lakefront, we have to do something about that intersection. And so leveraging some funds from the LDC, we were able to acquire a grant from the Genesee Transportation Council. That plan is nearing recommendation stage, and it has started to identify alternatives for not just the 5 and 20 332 intersection, but also into downtown and onto the lakefront, in addition to connection to some town trails that will again turn this into a fully connected, fully developed walking, biking, and not just deferring to automotive transport options. We're way down the road on that. The town stakeholders have been active in it, and we think in the next 2 months or so, we'll have the recommendations reported out on that. What that tees us up to do is to apply for what they call Transportation Alternatives Program grant, a TAP grant. The city would be eligible to apply to implement the recommendations of that plan, as would the town, to the degree that some of the project recommendations will be located inside of the town.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple other.
Sure.
Nora, is that business or housing? I'm wondering what you mentioned, the revitalizing that area.
Yeah.
What's the focus of that?
Yeah. So so for the time up to right now, we have focused on helping them get their plan across the finish line, which was a mixed use approach. What we have said today is we want the highest and best use for that site as identified by the city's comprehensive plan and any other strategic efforts. So in all likelihood, it would be a mixed use opportunity, but that will play out as we continue to chase the developer.
And then late one.
That'll be residential. Yeah.
And Tom's Mobile, I think, is that the
Mixed
residential?
use. Yes, sir.
So you have invested in the house, so quite a bit into the housing and looking into that.
You bet. It's been a focus of ours. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback on two things Matt mentioned. The last LDC meeting was this past Thursday at 10 o'clock. Since that time, I've talked to 2 town residents, County Canandaigua residents, and 3 business owners, one of which is affiliated with a distillery, one of which is affiliated with a cidery, that are super excited about the Canandaigua Beverage Trail. And they're just, they're already, people are starting to say, hey, I know that there's some discussions happening and everything, and very supportive. And the other thing is Matt mentioned the wayfinding signage. Just to be clear, in our Uptown study that we did, Bergman had started to do wayfinding signage on that. And so what the discussion with the LDC was to build on that and really connect the city of Canandaigua and the town of Canandaigua with similar wayfinding signage so that, and really have some similar, same type of signage, I guess is the way you would say it, so that somebody coming in from out of town can follow those signs and understand where all of that stuff is going. So, anyway.
And really quickly, again, not really overstayed my welcome, but relative to the deputy supervisor's question or point about housing, one other success that I left off the list just because it was a city project was we supported the LDC wrote, actually funded the writing of a New York Main Street application for downtown Canandaigua. It earned us a $500,000 grant to support the redevelopment of housing on the upper stories in downtown. That'll be workforce housing focused as well.
Matt, one other question.
Sure.
Just the website, at a moment of panic, because your website is so nice and so streamlined, I thought, oh no, they don't have the transparency.
Oh, you better believe
I
we
looked
did.
it up on my phone. Yeah, the meeting minutes, the agendas and compliance documents, which is exactly what you need for an LDC that's not trying to be a vessel for getting around open meetings law. Right there on the website, it absolutely is, but.
We keep an eye on it.
Oh, absolutely. This, when Doug said 2 years ago, Chris, great news, we're gonna have an LDC. I said, well, I'm not doing anything for it unless it's gonna be fully transparent, fully, open meetings law by the book.
Yeah.
Because they can really turn into the reverse. But I was gonna ask, what's the attendance at the meetings? Are they noticed?
They are, yeah. So we notice them. I think we still notice them on the town and city websites. We have our own website where we publish and we notify the media.
But do people show up?
Some we have some fans, but it's like a lot of things. People tend to get, there's not always something exciting going on. I'll say it that way. So when there is something exciting, we have fans. Yeah, you got it.
Well, great. That's great news. I'm glad to see this is going so strong.
And to Chris's point, also, you'll see we have audited financial statements. That's something Doug was really impressed upon. Doug and John both really impressed upon the board that the expectation is that this is a public authority and it will be governed as such. Open meetings, open records, full transparency.
You mentioned that there was the site that was for properties that were available.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there a lot of people taking advantage of that?
So the website just recently went live. Up to that point, Greater Rochester Enterprise was the organization, still is, by the way, the organization that hosts and manages that database. And so what they've told us is now that you're live and now that you're plugged up and ready to go, feel free to knock on doors, ask, give people the opportunity to promote their sites. So in those existing industry visits that we just discussed,
when we're dealing with realtors, when we're dealing with large property owners, we're going to make sure that they're aware of it. We want to create kind of a cheat sheet form that would allow my team to upload their site if need be. I mean, ideally, it would be great if they would take the initiative and do it themselves. But just like you all, I mean, you all know this, we deal with every kind of property owner, from a very super sophisticated, highly funded developer down to a family business who really wouldn't be aware.
There's a number of places I know, because I'm the treasurer for the Canandaigua Watershed Association, that we're somewhat looking at new space. And there's a number of places available around the Canandaigua Main Street area that probably are not on the site.
I guarantee you're
So
right.
It would be good to knock on those doors. I have a mini list.
I'd love that. Any referrals would be great. I appreciate that. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to continued public hearings. We have none. New public hearings. Public hearing on a local law to override the tax levy limit for the town of Canandaigua fiscal year 2022 relating to the consideration for the 2022 town budget. Can I have a motion to open the hearing? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does anyone wish to be heard on this? Seeing anyone online? Seeing no hands and no one requesting, I'd like a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Our next public hearing is on a local law opting out of adult use cannabis retail dispensaries and on-site consumption sales sites in the town of Canandaigua.
So moved.
A motion to open,
Oh,
thank you.
I jumped in.
That's okay. That was a motion to open the hearing. And we have a second from Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now open. Does anyone wish to be heard on this? Seeing no hands and no one requesting to be heard, I make a motion to close this public hearing. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Public hearing on the proposed 2021 Town of Canandaigua Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Don't
I just
push
want
the
it out.
opposition.
I just won't get it out there. Who's opposed? And now, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to be heard on this? And we intend to keep this open till next month.
That was supposed to continue the hearing.
Yep. Can we have a motion to continue this hearing?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This public hearing will continue to next month. Public hearing on a text code amendment, amending portions of town code pertaining to zoning relating to form-based code. Uptown form-based code.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to be heard on this? We're also going to be continuing this to next month, correct? Yes. We have a motion to continue this year. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to continue this hearing to the August 16th meeting date. Next, we have a public hearing on the text code amendment, amending portions of town code pertaining to zoning relating to digital signage. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is also a hearing which we would like to continue to next month, but would anyone like to be heard this month? Seeing no hands, we have a motion to continue this to next month.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This public hearing will be continued until next month, August 16th, 2021. Now we have reports of town officials and department heads. Tim Fletcher, would you like to give us an update?
I submit a report to the board for consideration and questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Pam, would you like to be heard, tax assessor?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I submitted the report. I have no additional comments.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a few comments.
Okay.
So many of you probably saw in the Daily Messenger, the article that I wrote regarding the cemeteries. You're probably somewhat aware, but for anybody that didn't, the Hun Cemetery on the corner of Woolhouse and County Road 32, some of our oldest headstones are suffering from vagaries of the weather. The freeze and thaw cycle is damaging 200-year-old headstones. And we had the same thing going on in some other cemeteries, and so do some of our neighboring towns. I've undertaken for about the last 45 days or so an inventory, a rough inventory of those headstones, and begun to discuss both with the town manager, supervisor, and board members some of the things that we might be able to do to preserve those headstones, and to perhaps even replace some of the ones that are so damaged that they're at risk of existing in any form. So we have at Hun Cemetery, we have the headstone of Reverend Zadok Hun, who was one of the founders of Canandaigua. It's a beautiful cemetery that Ray Henry and even some of his predecessors did a wonderful job of preserving for the public. And it's very much almost an outdoor museum, if you will. And it tells the story of the early history of Canandaigua. So Zadok stone and a number of other stones under attack by Mother Nature. That is probably the top of the list of the headstones and cemeteries. However, the Knott Road Cemetery and the Lucas Cemetery on County Road, or excuse me, on State Route 21 are all suffering. So I've begun to speak with the DAR just for the board's edification. They do have money available in the form of grants. They grant up to around $10,000 annually to projects that they find worthy. And cemeteries with the headstones of Revolutionary War veterans top their list. And so Hun Cemetery meets, kind of all those qualifications, and they've been helpful, as a lot of you know, in the past with regards to Hun. So I hope that those conversations will be ongoing. And I hope next month to report even more to you. And we're starting to pull together some of the human resources here in town. We have some very talented people. Sarah Linda Hooker, who most of you know, is involved in architectural preservation professionally. Peter Ellison, who's a resident, has helped us professionally as a consultant and as a conservationist. We're going to be employing him to undertake some emergency repairs. And Peter will also be advising us as we move forward. So I think that's all I have for the board right now, just that we're, I'm continuing to tap into the resources and find some of the, identify some of those organizations that might be able to partner up with the town and preserve that. So unless you have questions for me, that's all I have.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I don't know if you noticed in the paper in the last few days, there was a fellow from Canandaigua that's involved in restoring stones, so you might want to check on that, or I'll bring it.
I will. I would like to see that, Gary. I don't know, it wasn't Peter Ellison?
No.
Okay. So we're, okay. So we're also going to have one of the things that I hope to do with the group that we're putting together is have Peter educate volunteers from the town. There are some repairs to stones that are really fragile, and there are some that are the annual kind of maintenance that we could do that would save us a lot of money. It would be nice if we had volunteers and we could take the simple materials that are used to be able to go out and fix those things every year and ensure that they make it through the winter. But yeah, Gary, thank you. I would.
Sounded like that article, I know what you're talking about. It sounded like there's a difference in the materials that are used for. I was working up in Farmington, I heard in the cemetery up there.
Yeah,
Mostly limestone, whereas here it's slate.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a slate, it gets flaking.
Right. So we have two things going on in our cemeteries. So headstones, typically in our region, very early on, the ones that are most valuable were actually made out of local slate. And they were made by a fellow that moved onto the Phelps and Gorham Purchase really early. And he created some of the earliest stones. The oldest stone in the Hun Cemetery is dated 1799. Those stones, the blue, what's called blue slate, it delaminates. It's laid down just like plywood. It's, it's layers of sandstone. The marble ones disintegrate, and they're even more recent, but unfortunately rain kind of melts them. So they're a whole different thing, and how we're going to do that is it's going to take some creativity. But some of those are also extremely early. And there are some stones that are a little later that are also made out of marble, but sadly are disappearing. There was a replacement stone in Hun for one of our Revolutionary War veterans, and that stone, which was probably placed around 1900, is 50% degraded. In another 25 years, that stone, which is only 100 years old, will probably be illegible.
Now you got the slate stone in 1799 list, you got a better deal.
Yes, absolutely. So if that's it, then that's all I have for you. All right, thank you.
Lisa, do you have anything from town clerk's office? Our planner. Sean?
Oh, yeah, I need you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. You have my very first report, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I really thought your report was very informative.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the layout, the snapshot that you gave of all the various applications that are in. It's really informative.
Good
I
work.
like that.
Thank you. Yes, very helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Doug, anything else?
Yes, I submitted my report and there is an update including to another park on that, the turnover of that. A couple things, two other things. I just want to, unless there's some other direction, I'll move forward with notifying the East Bloomfield Fire Department that we will not be renewing our agreement with them at the end of this year. That's based on the study that we did jointly with the city of Canandaigua, and our current agreement with the East Bloomfield Fire District ends December 31st, 2021. I've had communication both with the city and Cheshire. They're both very willing to pick up that area in agreement with the plan that we did with the city. I think that was 2017, I believe, but anyway. So unless there's any objection, I'll just move forward and let them know. The other thing I want to just bring to your attention, I don't necessarily need any direction from you tonight, and it's something we can discuss maybe in the finance committee, Linda. As we're doing more and more of these hybrids, and other municipalities are too, they're starting to talk with companies that, for instance, help out with setting up audio video for the meeting space. And there is a local company that recently did Victor, the town of Victor. Farmington is, from my understanding, the Canandaigua School District's a meeting space at the school district, and they operate on state bid. And I asked them to come out and look at our room. And so basically what they said is that they would use our existing camera, but that we needed a different microphone setup that would include amplification in the room, as well as control boards associated with that. And that we really should have screens, for instance, like so that maybe in the back of the room, the Zoom presentation would stay in there so you could see the Zoom participants. And then over here, there would be a screen that would show whatever it is that we're sharing and those types of things. I know that with the planning board, they had their first meeting this past Tuesday night, and it became a little challenging sometimes because you were trying to share site plans and look at site plans and then also see who's on Zoom. So I just want you to be aware that's not inexpensive. I mean, we're talking the ballpark that they gave me because I asked a few extra questions, but is in the $25,000 to $30,000 price range to do that. So maybe it's something we can discuss a little bit more in detail. But if you want to continue the hybrid approach and have that option, I just want you to be aware there will be some technology upgrades to really make it more efficient. So
Would that be a one-time cost?
yes, one-time cost. Yes. And then it would be all internal. By the way, that would also help. I've been talking with Judge Perel. They have a challenge with audio also for court. And so it would amplify audio in the room. And then when you're doing Zoom, what they said is there's a switch, and I don't know all the specific logistics, but there's a switch that automatically like mutes the speakers in the room. So then it goes goes through the Zoom cycle, so that you don't get the feedback and those sorts of things, so.
Would that qualify for ERP?
Great question.
I mean, if
So,
we did it outside, it probably would, so it would be improved.
Perhaps, it is possible.
So it might be worth looking at.
Put a patio right out there.
Yeah.
French doors.
What do we have on it? On the right now?
It's well in excess of $1.5 million, nearing two, so we have, yes.
We have a technical meeting as well, don't we?
My budget's coming down.
I was saying this. Linda was asking about our technical reserve. We do have a technology reserve. Off the top of my head, I know it's in your agenda that has the exact, I want to say it's about 19,000. As some of you have talked to tonight, we also have a Wi-Fi issue here in the building that needs to be addressed. We also have a Wi-Fi issue in the highway line that really needs to be addressed. We are very fortunate that we had received a $50,000 grant from the New York State Department of Homeland Security right before COVID, which included $25,000 analysis of what our technology needs are in the town of Canandaigua, including, for instance, hacking, those types of things, as well as it includes our SCADA system, which we need to talk to you a little bit about. That's our water system, the control of our water system. And then it also includes $25,000 in upgrades. The company, from my understanding, is pretty close to issuing a report. They're just waiting on the SCADA system and the situation. It has nothing to do with Jim. It's the company that the two companies are talking to each other about the SCADA system. But anyway, once they issue that, then we'll be able to use that $25,000 for also upgrades. And it's my understanding, Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, that the report is going to find that Wi-Fi is actually a vulnerable, so that we'll actually be able to use some of that money to help with the Wi-Fi. So we're trying to look under every rock, but I think if anything, we've learned over the last year the importance of technology, and we have to continue making investments in it.
Well, I really support the hybrid meeting because it really allows people to attend our meetings in a convenient way. So, I would like us to look into those things.
Absolutely.
I think we're all in agreement. Violently agree. Going along and learning as we go along, so if we could have someone who can help us on the report. All right, thank you. Supervisor, deputy supervisor report, the monthly financial reports are included, including revenue expense reports, overtime reports for all departments, highway and water. Next, we have reports of committees, boards, and commissions. Finance, Linda, do you have anything? Nothing further. All right, Terry, do you have anything from planning?
Jim covered everything. I think the only thing that he didn't have in his report, we were talking about the need to look at our water distribution system, and we should be talking about replacing a certain percentage of that on an annual basis. Because a lot of the pipe has been in the ground for decades, 50 years plus. And some of it is very susceptible to ACP pipe, the cement pipe gets attacked from the outside in. It's something we really should think about replacing on an annual basis. We've never done that before. Jim's going to develop a plan to do that.
Thanks, Terry. We'll expect that next week.
Okay. Yeah.
Environmental, yeah, nothing. Gary, do you have anything from ordinance?
No.
Planning, I don't know if I saw. Chuck, no. ZBA, and no. ECB,
No, I do. No, I have something to say.
okay.
I do want to thank Shauna for her report as well, and we got together, and she included in there, we got together this last month to streamline the pairing the NRI with the PRC process to help flag those projects that should come to the ECB, and that was very helpful. And I'm also excited that in the agenda this month, we will be receiving a new member and naming a new member of the board, which will be very nice. That's it.
All right, thank you. CIC, I don't see, is there anyone else on CIC?
The CNC meets tomorrow morning. I know that their scheduled topic is 2022 budget request, and that's just FYI. I want to mention that because it's a hot topic right now.
Parks and Rec.
Yes, I do have something. I don't have a full report from Mark Neal would do that. But I've been working on the senior program, and I want to share with you that we're going to start our weekly card and games at Outhouse on the 19th. of August after the the children are done using the outhouse building. But the exciting thing is we're forming a partnership with Quail Summit. And we have met with them twice, and we're going to kick it off with a picnic lunch and a euchre tournament where you have to move from table to table to get people to interact with the Quail Summit Independent Living people and our group. And we're planning on doing 2 things a month with Quail Summit. And their people, of course, are invited to come to our weekly meetings. So it's really kind of exciting. I'm hoping the pandemic stays in this somewhat bit of an abatement. But, and if it does, I'm working on contacting Victor to participate in their day trips too. And they've let us partner before, and I think we can do that again. So.
Did this Quail Summit have the bus going over to?
I'm sorry.
Does Quail Summit provide their bus over to outhouse if necessary?
If to our card group, yes, they'll do that. And we even talked about them, our group using the bus at certain times. Some of that's going to, I hate to tell you this, Doug, it's going to use the senior budget. So when we talk about budget tomorrow morning.
Well, the good news is, especially with Mr. Twilliger sitting here, it's a joint program with the city, so that's the cost is split 50/50. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. So, but I'm going to ask more.
All right, thank you. Special Events Committee.
I'm sorry, just one more thing on parks. Tomorrow night, we have food trucks in the parks.
I just meant to say that. Music in the park tomorrow night, our house park. Yes.
Yes.
It's July 20th.
Hope it doesn't rain.
July 20th seems so far off. Okay. Agriculture Committee, no. Drainage Committee, no. Okay. Do we have our next privilege of the floor if anyone would like to be heard?
Before you, the drainage committee, Chuck was here, but I forgot, it's our last public works committee meeting. Chuck was there. And he, at some point, I don't know how or what, he's gonna make a recommendation that we, not disband, but roll the drainage committee into the public works committee. People that are on the drainage committee are also welcome. And really, the thrust of that whole thing, it came about when we were having a lot of problems on Westlake Road, coming with 16 and over on the east side. And a lot of those situations have been addressed. Everything's been cataloged. There is a spreadsheet that shows, what the problems were, where they were, how they're being resolved. Jim's done a lot of work in some areas. The truck is going to recommend that committee be discontinued and that effort be pulled in. So I don't know how we do that. The mechanism, the resolution probably in our next meeting.
I probably should speak up on behalf of the agriculture committee. They're going to be involved in the presentation at the fair on the 29th of this month, along with some watershed people.
Nice. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, now privilege of the floor.
Yes. Okay. Well, I would like the town to commend the Cheshire Fire Department and dog.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, if you don't want to.
Okay. It's not part of my 3 minutes. So I would like to have the town thank the Cheshire Fire Department and Doug for directing traffic on Wells Curtis Road yesterday. And I was right up the street there when that happened. And I just want to point out to you, I mean, it could have been a potentially really serious thing if that truck had something other than milk that was leaking out of it. And it was leaking substantially when we saw it. So I'm down there quite a bit. And when a truck comes down that road, they really shouldn't be on that road. But when they come down that road, in order to make that turn, they have to go all the way into the other lane. And in order to get the trailer to clear, there were 6 cars parked on the side of the road yesterday. And I know that because we had just come up the road before that truck went down the road. So I'm wondering if that was part of the problem for that truck. My son says he didn't know where he was, but it could have been a problem, and it can be a problem. So it's similar to the problem on Westlake Road by German Brothers. There's plenty of room there, but there's not room for a semi to make that corner without going into that other lane and perhaps going into the parking area on the other side of the road there. So I don't know what to tell you to do, but that road, it's important that, I know it's part of the Middle Cheshire Road plan, and it's important that we really take a real good look at that particular corner. But Cheshire did a wonderful job out there. So thank you.
Yes, thank you to Beth and for they're always doing a great job, and maybe we should always
They're good
take
group of
time
people.
to, yep, take time to maybe take them for granted. I personally thank them all the time, but public recognition means a lot more, so I know that we all feel the same way. And you're right, we should thank them, so publicly thank them and everyone that was out there, and Doug too for directing traffic. For those of you that don't know, there was a milk truck that Jack Knight spilled on the Wells Curtis Westlake Road intersection, which is a horrible intersection for a car, but not a truck driving to town. So we thank them for that and many more things they've done in the last. So thank you for the reminder. All right, on to our resolutions in motion. We have no continued resolutions. We're moving to a new resolution. Oops. Wait a minute. Resolution number 2021-158, acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-159, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by town manager. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-160, adoption of a local law to override the tax levy limit. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. I'm sorry.
Four.
Okay, this will be local law number 4 of 2021. Resolution number, we voted on that, correct? Yes. Yes. Resolution number 2021-161, authorization of expenditures relating to replacement of HVAC systems in the lower level of the town hall.
Moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-162, authorization to hire additional summer staff for parks.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-163, authorize salary increase for human resources and payroll coordinator.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-164, authorize salary modification for the administrative aid coordinator.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-165, authorize purchase of new tandem axle truck with snowplow equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-166, acceptance of the maintenance agreement quote from Hatch. Is that what?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-167, authorized budget transfer for Canandaigua Consolidated Water District Capital Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-168, reimbursement for water charges.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-169, authorization for update of the map plan and report for water main extension on Rosswood Road and Woolhouse Road.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-170, support for submission of an application to the Green Innovation Grant Program for water meter replacement and seeker type 2 action.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-171, asking New York DOT to reconsider adding turn lanes and turn signal improvements to State Route 332, North Street, North Road, Macedon Road intersection, and additional turn lanes and potential signal improvements to the State Route 5 and 20 Middle Cheshire Road intersection.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Doug, you want to encapsulate the meeting at DOT Friday morning?
Well, I'll try, actually, Jim Fletcher had set up a meeting for us with New York State Department of Transportation. So Terry and I and Jim had a chance to chat with them. Basically, Jim, please feel free to jump in here, but they're going to be replacing, let's start with Middle Cheshire Road. They're going to be replacing the current light that is there, and they're going to be installing those big mass poles, and they'll be on the opposite sides of the intersection. So there'll be one at each of the four corners spreading across, and then there would be signal controls. So if you were coming towards the town hall, for instance, from the lake, and you were coming up the hill and you were coming up towards, and you were going to come out towards the town hall, the traffic light would actually be after the intersection. You'll see it, but the traffic light will actually be after the intersection. And that was, through what DOT said was a safety grant that they're doing to change those. Did they give us a timeline on that?
It's going to be done next year, starting late spring. They're going to install a new base and post with new signals, which you may have seen some that have the black with the gold, called gold or yellow trim to make them more obvious as you're traveling towards them. Their study showed that that intersection has a red light run issue. So by placing them ahead of the intersection, it's providing you, it gives you the interpretation that you can't run the intersection because the light is farther away from you versus across the middle. And then, so when you're heading westbound on 5 and 20, also there'll be a turn arrow left on Middle Cheshire Road. But it'll also flash, like you see the one at County Road 41 and 332, if you're familiar with that intersection now. It'll flash yellow saying you can go, but travel correctly. We spoke quite a bit about trying to get the southbound lane of Middle Cheshire Road as you cross 5 and 20, a straight or right-hand turn lane. We discussed that at length due to, we wanted that back when the village was being built. That is not part of this improvement, and they were not, do not see a need for it. If anything, they said the town can pursue further options by drawing up a plan and coming to the regional office to discuss it with them. And if they like to fund the project, they would also consider that also.
Actually, when Bill was authorized, incentive zoning was used, and there were a series of 10 amenities that were offered by the developer to the town in exchange for the incentive zoning.
Terry, this is the villas.
Correct. And most of the amenities were, implemented. The one that wasn't was that turning straight lane, which Jim referred to. We got one on the south side of 330 or 5 and 20, and not on the north side. Between the developer and DOT, or the engineering firm that was representing the developer, they kept whittling that down to what it is now, which is probably half to 60% of the width is really necessary to add it. They did indicate that if we paid for it, they would probably consider a permit application in a positive manner that we could do it if we wanted to. And it would be up to the town board to decide in the future.
I think one of the other big things that came out in the meeting that my takeaway from that meeting was they were looking at accident data based on what is reported to DMV. We're fortunate enough that both of those intersections, Middle Church Road 5 and 20 and the 332 North Street, we've just recently completed interactive or the transportation plans for both of those intersections, which had significantly higher accident data in our plans than what DOT is saying they got from DMV. So I think that's another thing for us to look at. We need to take this resolution. It's like, okay, maybe it didn't rise to the level of being reported to DMV, but we still have our local sources, whether it's Cheshire Fire Department, City of Canandaigua Fire Department, Police Department, and all of that, where we do have that data, and hopefully we can get some additional attention from them on that.
The difference in the number of accidents with orders of magnitude.
Yes.
Not like 10 more. It was more than, it was like 30 times.
Yeah.
No difference.
Were you guys able to bring that to their attention?
Yeah.
Did it make any difference?
Well, we discussed it, so they shared with us where they got their information from, which was sent to Terry, myself, and Doug, and we're gonna send back our information to discuss, so.
Step one.
And is there a way to, while they're doing all of this, like us just to pay some little incremental amount and they do, you know, they're rejiggering the whole intersection anyway with these poles, right?
Correct. We discussed, I asked them about adding the additional,
With,
well, not so much width, loops. So like at least put in the conduits to the loops for future expansion, and that was really not part of the plan. So they're really sticking to what this grant is covering. Okay.
They kept referring to the software package that they have that tells them how to tie their shoes and work. They need everything. If it doesn't come out of this plan, we don't do it. And the data that's going into it isn't the data that we're familiar with, it's another source. We can only do what this box tells us to do. It was
not even a few dollars a conduit now, rather than tearing it all up and having it later it expands.
Right. So, you know, we tried to convince them to do other things, but the gentleman, I mean, he was very informative. He's like, it's not the budget. We're not doing it. That's all I'm doing.
it's definitely a safety concern and maybe it's a good use for the grant money, some of it.
Possibly. But I don't think we can use the ARP money on road improvements.
No,
No,
not a safety improvement?
no.
Or is it on the list? Oh, bummer.
People are getting robbed at that intersection.
All
All right, any? Yep, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-172, adoption of the Uptown Canandaigua form-based code and seeking determination of non-significant. Yeah, that over until, yeah, we're gonna hold that over until next month. It doesn't require a vote, right? Resolution number 2021-173, setting a public hearing on the draft conservation subdivision regulation revisions and seeker intent to declare endangered. So moved. Any discussion?
Kathy, if I could, John Robotella brought to my attention the now therefore be it resolved paragraph, actually reference today's date instead of next month's date,
Okay,
August 16th, 2021.
all right, with that revision. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. And you agree that would not need to be voted that change, right? It's just ministerial, Chris?
Yeah, that's.
Resolution number 2021-174, seeker determination of non-significance and adoption of local law opting out of adult use cannabis retail dispensaries and on-site consumption. Any discussion?
Right? No, it's hard for me to forego the tax. Because the finance person on the group. I can see why we would want to opt out and maybe opt in later. But I feel like if we don't do this in our town, and another town does it, they will be the beneficiary of all the tax revenue, and, you know, that's a significant, it could be a significant issue for people here.
So we could stay in. And still not be the beneficiary if no dispensary or lounge is built in our town. Just because you're in doesn't mean you get the money.
Well,
If
correct.
they build them
Right,
all around
right.
us and none in our
But
town.
if we prevent it
It
from
ain't
being
any.
built in our town, we wouldn't have any of that revenue.
You can always, get back in, so if someone came to the town and said, we'd like to do this, you could vote the next day.
Once all the problems are worked out of the system.
Yeah, and so I am okay with that. I just do hope that we don't become the only town around that doesn't allow it and that we don't partake in that. But I'm okay with this as it is because we have the opportunity to change it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passed. You need a local every 5 of 2021.
Whether we can rescind it prior to December 31st.
Right.
You can rescind it, as soon as it's adopted.
Well, and it's sort of subject for this.
Yeah, there's a referendum happens.
Resolution number 2021-175, secret determination of non-significance and adoption of text code amendment pertaining to zoning in order to allow for replacement of certain pre-existing signs with digital signs.
Well,
They're laying this over.
the gentleman from Lamar, by the way, were willing to be here, and I called him off, just no legal next one.
Resolution number 2021-176. Yes, 176. Thank you. Adoption of remote participation policy. So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
I do, for a little I, should as the supervisor, as the chair of the town board meetings, should the supervisor be listed as one who's notified if a board member is going to be participating remotely? It's for a, I don't know the page number of the thing with them.
Is that a question or is that?
It's not in there. So
What is it?
if one of us is not in the meeting,
We have a notification process that puts it
Yep.
out to the public or the supervisor.
no,
would see it too.
we're before that. If I can, it says, do you have it in front of you, Doug?
Yes.
Can you read that?
Sure, so it's 4 restrictions on remote attendance, A, and then little II, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is not a change, this is the current. It says he or she provides written notice to the town manager and the town clerk specifying the qualifying event at least 1 week prior to the meeting. So that is so that we can provide the proper
Right,
notice.
and my question is, as the chair of the board, out of respect for the supervisor, should that also be there? Should the supervisor also be listed as part of that notification chain?
What did you find out when the supervisor find out when?
I'm just out of respect for the position as the chair of the meeting. I mean, if you were a board chair and wasn't going to be there, let me know. That is not spelled out in the policy.
I think that's a good.
I don't think it's a problem to add that.
It doesn't change it, it just
I
adds
think
another
it's
CC
implied,
to
so-
an email.
I think that, so this is for the remote attendance policy. I think our rules of procedure, if they don't say that you have to know that absent board members should notify the chair, it would be applied by the rules of order. I think that may actually be a responsibility incumbent upon all of you already.
Well, technically, town boards don't.
Our rules of procedure say in the absence of a board. We worded it pretty much so. We find the petition of others. There. hard to. Hard to
The
apply.
Association of Towns doesn't agree with it. So, not that they're the all in.
So
There
I
were
would,
times when I didn't know when it was not going to be there would have been next to it.
yeah, so
I don't think
I
it
would
was,
just,
no, I just think it was one of those things.
I would just propose adding that.
Yeah.
to it.
I know. Is it that difficult to say I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that? Is it gonna prevent us from going forward? No. And it won't be me after this year, so I'm thinking for the next person that takes over. It is.
So Jared, you're making a motion
To make a motion to amend to include the town supervisor and for a little I. I don't know if I'm,
so there'll be 3 people.
I don't know if I'm listening that, reading that correctly
Yeah.
in the proper Roman numerals.
So you made a motion.
So we have
I like it.
Bruce,
To amend.
second it. I'll second it. Does anyone else want to be heard on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to amend carries. Now, as to the amended remote participation policy, have a motion to agree.
So moved.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. Thank you.
Just. And I'm sorry, and I just, as I'm scanning the resolution, I just don't see it. Can we just clarify that the board's intent with resolution 2021-174, that's the opt-out on the cannabis, that your intent is to pass that and adopt that law subject to permissive referendum?
We have no choice on that.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that's on the record, that
That's in there, correct?
I don't see it, that's why I'm asking.
Well, even if it's
So-
not there,
Even if
you
it's not, it's still subject.
can't legislate that out.
But
so-
it's a good idea to have it on the record, like.
Thank you. Resolution number 2021-177, appointment of Eric Obenauer to the vacant position of the Town Environmental Conservation Board.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-178, accepting the resignation of seasonal park staff. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-179, adoption of the Town of Canandaigua Comprehensive Plan Update 2021, secret determination of non-significance and relaying the solar structure. Resolution number 2021-180, update to the Town of Canandaigua's COVID-19 paid leave costs. Any discussion?
Is there anything different in this policy for people who are vaccinated versus unvaccinated? Or is this, I recognize this, it said fully vaccinated, I'm sorry, I have to pause this. Is there any difference in how?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know that this list was specific to the updated CDC guidelines that were released. Because there were some changes versus our current policy. So I don't know if there's anything specific for vaccinated versus non-vaccinated. We have to get back to you on that.
Can we make that what we admitted to? As far as the leave policy, that we want to do that.
Since it's a preventable thing.
It's not,
That's.
there's no law on, we would have to, I think you could do either way for the town.
So this is for.
I just got devil's advocate wondering if that's in there and something, then
It's a good
somebody
question.
doesn't, are we liable, are we opening ourselves up to somebody not, or if they don't want to?
All of the the big firms have weekly COVID trainings. And the answer to that is always, yeah, this is definitely something we should all be aware of and, keep track of for updates going forward. And, somebody's gonna do it wrong and get sued about it. And I don't think the way this is worded that that's going to be the town of Canandaigua, but then we can be cutting edge and bold and take risks if you want. But I think it's a good appropriate middle road the way it is. But you raised a very good question.
Yeah, I wasn't really, I guess only referring to this as if we weren't in general, but the full policy.
So we do have employees that are choosing not to get vaccinated. So we do have,
So we would pay their pay week.
well, this says fully vaccinated.
Yes.
On this
that's what-
particular.
yeah, that's what I- you know, that's what I think. Okay,
We can look at that.
yeah, we're gonna finance.
Yep. And if something needs to be changed. we can do that. Great. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Resolution number 2021-181, soil erosion and sediment control surety for 3439 West Lake Boulevard.
So,
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any
Yeah.
opposed? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, keep going on that.
She wants to go on.
there's only one surety.
That's it, yeah, block the one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries.
Now, if I may interject, we could return to 221-176. A concerned member of the public in attendance here has pointed out to me that perhaps the motion, the resolution wasn't voted upon. So you could redo that. The concerned member of the public has no experience in listening to people vote.
Yeah.
And,
I could certainly did the amendment and then as amended, but we can do it again.
I thought we did, but we'll do it.
Extra voting is never a bad thing.
But if Gene says you didn't,
Rather than
I go ahead
revoking
and
the tape, let's
then
vote
we
again.
do it.
Yep, I agree. So we agreed to amend. Can I have a resolution to approve as amended? Did I say resolution? Can I have a motion? So to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution carries. All right. Thank you, concerned members of the audience. for this country. Appreciate it. Always appreciate it.
Couldn't keep it, yeah, he couldn't keep it to herself.
No, I appreciate it. Better fix it now than later. All right, at this time we have approval of town board meeting minutes from June 21st, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion, additions, deletions, or errors which need to be fixed? All in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Town board meeting minutes of June 21st, 2021 are approved. Payment of the bills, Lisa.
Here's the utility abstract dated 7/1/2021, totaling $56,856.83. The general fund was $21,683.73. The highway fund was $23,500. Water district was $5,116.11. Custodial fund $6,556.99. The town board abstract dated 7/19/2021, totaling $674,185.88. The general fund was $169,468.87. The highway fund was $158,978.09. Capital projects was $400,307.79. Lighting districts $1,147.14. Water districts $12,055.82. Custodial funds $25,535.28.
Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
payment?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve payment of bills carries. Privilege of the floor. Anyone like to be heard? Seeing no hands or requests, any other business? Privilege of the floor, again, anyone else? Yeah, and do we need an executive session? Yes, we do.
Before we do, there's I think there's something wrong here. On the payment of the bills for 7/19. Because I'm just looking at it roughly, but I feel like the amounts might not add up to 400 for capital projects.
run the report, the abstract.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. It was
So,
just-
but that's the big, the 719 is the big pot, right? You have the utility abstract in your hand.
Utility, no, I don't. This is, oh, here, yeah, but I have this compared to here,
Okay.
and I feel like it's not 400. It's the water district, it's 134, and this is 184.
The water districts aren't part of capital projects.
All right, well, so I can't get 400. It's 184. Right, 400. See what I'm saying? Something seems a little off.
So this is. 712.
I don't want to sign together. I don't want us to sign that.
That's 712 report, so the 719.
This one was good.
That's utility.
Utility matched.
You should be a second.
Yeah, because when I add this up, this was over 700. It's not always fun. How many times you tell with the capital projects, or some of these aren't, this and that.
So if you get into the details here, you've got, under the projects, you've got, so total is the 674, 185, 88 per this run report of 7/12/21, 147 PM. That included the general fund of 169, 468, 97. Highway fund of 158, 978, 09. Capital projects, 184, 283, 43. Lighting districts, and then this breaks them, our computer system breaks them out individually, and then I try to add them up for you. So it's Center Point Lighting District of 9240, Fox Ridge Lighting District of 963.12, Lakewood Meadows Lighting District of $16.11, Fallbrook Park Lighting District of $119.60, and the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District of $134,728.88, and then trust and agency expense of $25,535.28.
So capital is overstated, lighting is understated.
So the total being 674,185.88. So the 674,185.88 is correct
Yeah.
per the 7/12/21 report.
Capital's lower and lighting is high.
So I don't know if some numbers got transposed or something. I'll have to look into that tomorrow, but your total per the 7/12/21
Yeah.
abstract is the 674,185.88.
Is that 719?
So we're, we approved based on 719.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd recommend is your motion based on the 7/12/21 abstract. 147, if you want to be specific, in the amount of $674,185.88.
Okay. So then they'll fix the 100.
And then we'll see what's going on. I'll get take it up tomorrow.
All right, so to be clear, let's
I
revote
will
on
be
that.
signing that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's,
You want me to read the numbers for you again?
I think I have them.
yeah, that has the right numbers on
You
it.
want me to do it?
So, so it's the general fund, $169,468.97. The highway fund, $158,978.09. Capital projects, $184,283.43. Then we have lighting districts, Center Point Lighting District, $92.40. Fox Ridge Lighting District, $963.12. Lakewood Meadows Lighting District, $16.11. Fallbrook Park Lighting District, $119.60. The Canandaigua Consolidated Water District, $134,728.88. and trust and agency $25,535.28, totaling the $674,185.88.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve those bills as stated by Mr. Bench? So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Thank you for catching up, so we can be clear, even though in the end it was all correct. But we want to make sure that we're paying the right bills and approving the right bills. So thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to pay the bills as per the town board abstract dated July 12th, 2021 is approved. So executive session. We have, do you want to put them on the record anymore, or?
The town manager is requesting executive sessions with the town manager and town attorney present for employment history of a particular person or matters leading to said dismissal, removal, promotion, appointment, employment discipline, motion, or suspension for 1, 2, 3 employee, 3 situations, proposed pending or current litigation for 2, proposed acquisition, sale, lease of real property for 1, and 2 attorney-client privilege communications meetings. I would ask for a motion to enter there.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we expect anything after? No. We don't expect anything else after. So thank you everyone for attending.
Good job.
Bye.